And welcome back to the Touchline Talk Show. It is prediction time. So, I'm going to start in the round of 16 and I'm going to talk through what I think is going to happen in this tournament. Going to put it on there, put it out there on the record, and then I'm sure look at least somewhat silly by the end. I'm not going to try and walk through all of the different permutations and the ways that this sets up because it is not as simple as just Group A plays Group B. And so one thing changes and it just becomes a whole mess, and it's difficult to find out who's going to play who. So I'm just walking through my 16 and what I think this is going to look like. So your first sort of quarter of the bracket is going to set up your winner of Group A against your second place team in Group C. For me, that is Norway, Japan. I don't think that's too surprising. Not calling any upset there. Those are just the two teams that are expected to get through. That then sets up with the winner of Group E and the second place team from Group G. Group E, I have the United States winning, and that leads to a matchup with Italy as the second team out of Group G. I am not all that confident in Italy getting out of that group, but I still have enough faith that they're going to figure things out this time around and be better than they were at the Euros. And if they get anything close to their full potential, they're going to get out of that group. So I'm going to continue to have at least some faith in Italy to get to the round of 16. So that sets up Norway, Japan, USA, Italy for spots in the quarterfinals. Norway, Japan, I'm going Norway. I believe in this team. I don't want to give up on this team. It is the better team on paper. At some point, this just has to happen for Norway. They should be able to get past Japan. And then I'm taking the United States. Just too much talent for Italy. Italy is just not used to being able to play against those kind of teams. Of course, they see them in UEFA, but they haven't really been competitive with them. There's just a clear gap there. So, Norway, United States, two teams in the quarterfinals. On the other side of that bracket, you have the winner of Group C and the second place team from Group A. That is Spain and Switzerland for me. Again, Switzerland's one of those teams that I don't feel great about, but ultimately I'm just sticking with the teams that I feel like are the best on paper. And so Switzerland find a way to get through. Spain, they're still the best team in that group, even though I've expressed my reservations about them. That game then faces the winner of the top of Group G and the second place team from Group E. That is Sweden and the Netherlands. Difficult draw for Sweden, who should win their group without any issue. Assuming nothing bizarre happens, you get the Netherlands or the United States in the round of 16 as those two teams in Group E. I expect the U.S. to win the group, so that gives you the Netherlands. And you couldn't avoid them by finishing second because you're going to have to play one of them anyway. So Sweden, just unfortunate draw, and an unfortunate draw for the Netherlands too, or the United States. If you don't win that group, there's just a clear team you're trying to avoid out of Group G, and that is Sweden, and one of them is not going to be able to. So, Spain, Switzerland, I'm going Spain. Just too much talent. Switzerland is not on their level. Sweden, Netherlands, I'm going Sweden. I believe in the Sweden team. They generally do what they're supposed to at tournaments. They don't get upset. If it was a different matchup, I would absolutely be able to talk myself into the Dutch making the quarterfinals. But without Vivian Miedema, Sweden just has too much. So, one side of your quarterfinals, Norway, United States, Spain, Sweden. Going to the other side of the bracket. You got the winner of Group B and the second place team from Group D. I'm going Australia to top this brutal Group B. I am concerned for Canada. I don't think there's too much between those teams anyway. And Australia is at home. I'm a big believer in that. If I'm Australia and I'm looking at that group, there is nobody that scares me. It's a very difficult group. There are no guaranteed points, but that is absolutely a group Australia can win. And then you get to second place in Group D. It should be Denmark. I don't expect England to have any problems in that group, so that leaves Denmark as your second team facing Australia in the round of 16. The winner of that game plays the winner of the first place team in Group F and second place team in Group H. I'm going to Brazil to top Group F. I have some worries about France missing a couple attacking players, the tensions with the Federation recently, and quite frankly, this Brazil team might just be better. I really, really like the foundational pieces of this Brazil team. Of course, Marta's still there. You got Debinha. I'm a huge Caroline fan. This might be a little bit of one of my hotter takes, but there's just not much between these teams on paper for me anyway. And the one that has better vibes, better feel more confidence right now is Brazil. So I'm going for them to top Group F. That sets up a meeting with South Korea as the second team from Group H. This is another one. This group behind Germany is wide open. Ultimately, I do think it's South Korea who goes through, so that puts them as the second team because I expect Germany to do what they're supposed to. So, Australia, Denmark, give me Australia at home, more talent, have the best player on the field, checks all the boxes there. Brazil, Korea, give me Brazil, better team. I really like where they're going, as I mentioned before. So, they will advance, and then the second half of that bracket, first place team in Group D, that is England. Don't really need to elaborate on that. Facing the second place team from Group B. So this is also a really interesting one in terms of how does this play out in Group B. Because you're not only playing to top your group if you're Canada and Australia, you're also playing to avoid England. In this instance, Canada is the team that does not get to avoid England. I have England winning that one. And then Germany, as your first place team in Group H, plays France as your second place team in Group F. I have Germany, better team, more confident. I feel very good about where Germany is at. So, your quarterfinals: Norway, United States, Spain, Sweden, Australia, Brazil, England, Germany. Going back to the other side, Norway, United States, I'm going with the US. I can't talk myself into a Norway team that hasn't gotten to the the very sorry, hold on one second. The the very very end of these tournaments, semifinals in beating the United States. Could it happen? Absolutely. I might even be more confident in it happening than most people. But I can't predict it's going to happen when I haven't seen it from Norway. So the US is into the semifinals. Spain and Sweden. I'm taking Sweden. This is where you're comparable, if not better, on paper. All of the kind of extraneous stuff that Spain is still dealing with, the players that aren't there, to me it's a little bit too much. I just have a hard time seeing them get to the semis, unless everything breaks perfectly for them. So, give me Sweden, then Australia, Brazil. I'm going to go Australia. Maybe Brazil has a little bit more talent, but Australia has Sam Kerr. Australia is at home. There's just, I don't see anything in the way that this bracket is going to lay out that stops Australia from getting to the semifinals. We've seen them do it before, and now they're playing in front of their fans. And there isn't an England, a Germany, a Sweden, a United States to get in their way yet. And my thought process is basically, if those four teams aren't there, I'm going to stick with Australia. And I'm going to bet on Sam Kerr. I'm going to bet on the Matildas being at home. And then the quarterfinal, if this all plays out the way that I have it here, England, Germany, rematch of Euro 2022 final. I'm going Germany. Germany will feel like they should have won that game. They probably would have if it was at a truly neutral venue as opposed to being played at Wembley. I also just think Germany might be a little bit better at this moment with the squad they were able to bring because of those injuries to England. And there's the other part of this, which is I am also a huge believer in the extra motivation you can find coming off of a massive disappointment, as opposed to the motivation to go repeat or build on what you did. England had the moment of their lifetimes last summer, and now you got to go do it again. Germany came so close to having one of those moments. To me, it just gives you a little bit more of an edge. So if everything else is equal, that's going to tip me in the favor of Germany. So semifinals: USA, Sweden on one side, Australia, Germany on the other. USA, Sweden, I'm going with the United States. Don't feel great about it, to be honest. Ultimately, I trust this US team, and coming off of an Olympics where things did not go well, I expect this team to show up and do what they need to do. Whether that means they actually win the tournament is a different discussion. That's what's changed at this World Cup. The conversation surrounding this U.S. women's national team has to change if they don't win because they lose in the semifinals or something. They might have just lost to a team that was right on their level and it was a 50-50 game. That's not something you say in previous World Cups. They have been the standard and the clear favorites. They are the favorites probably, but not by very much at all. So anything outside the semifinals, massive disappointment. But once you get to the semis, I really feel like this is the first tournament where, hey, anything can happen. You don't need to read too much into it. But I do think they get past Sweden. Sweden has really struggled in these semifinals. You could flip that and say, well, ultimately they're going to... The logic just says if they keep playing them, they're going to win one of them. But I have enough faith in this U.S. team coming off of a disappointing Olympics to get to the final. Australia, Germany, this is where Australia's run comes to an end. Germany is just simply the better team, has the extra added edge coming off of the disappointment at Euro 2022. They just played at Wembley too in that final. They won't be fazed by facing Australia at home. They know what those kind of environments are like. You know, some of these players just played in the Champions League final with Wolfsburg. I'm not concerned about the Germans handling Australia at home. They know what they're doing in high pressure, really, packed environments. They're going to be fine. So that sets up a USA-Germany final. I went back and forth. I don't feel great about it. But ultimately, I went with Germany. And I've been surprised at how much I have seen this. I thought this might be kind of my contrarian hot take thing that I firmly believe in. It's not a hot take for hot take's sake. But I thought I had more confidence in Germany than some other people, and it doesn't seem like that's as much the case as I thought. To me, there is a real argument that player for player, they are the most talented team at this tournament. I'm not sure I buy that, but I will entertain it as a conversation. Then you throw in the fact that I do believe that their strength is the 5 players who are going to come off the bench, which is more of a question mark, as I've talked about, for the U.S. and for England, because those players are now starting because of the absentees. And I really, really, really believe in the challenge of continuing to repeat and continuing to elevate your standard, as opposed to having and being continuing to fend off everybody chasing you, as opposed to Germany getting to the semis, getting to the final, and being so determined to not let what happened at Euro 2022 happen again and use that heartbreak to fuel them. It's not that the other teams don't care. I just fundamentally believe there is another level of motivation and intensity and energy you can find when you have something like that to point to, when you have this driving force. It's why Michael Jordan would, come up with all of these random ways to make himself feel like he was slighted. That's how you get the mental edge. Germany is going to have that because of how close they came last summer. And they might just be the most talented team at this tournament, too. And so, ultimately, that's where I came down on this. So, again, your semifinals, USA over Sweden, Germany over Australia. Give me Germany to win the 2023 Women's World Cup.